Just 4 months ago, this guy was walking around the streets for hours before he could gather enough courage to approach just one girl. But after having a big aha moment and learning a few important details about overcoming approach anxiety, all of a sudden he was able to go out and approach 9 girls in one day. Now, just 4 months later, he has approached 225 girls, has been on 7 dates and slept with 2 of them. And this is just the beginning. In this interview, he will tell you how he did it. If this story inspires you, very soon I'll be doing a free webinar where I'll teach you the best techniques for overcoming approach anxiety I've learned over more than 7 years of coaching Daygame. When I started Daygaming more than 10 years ago, it felt like I would never be able to overcome approach anxiety. I went out almost every day for more or less 2 hours for 2 weeks until I gathered enough courage to approach a random girl for the first time. But even after that, each time I went out was a big challenge. I had to walk around for a long time before I could gather enough courage to start doing any approaches. Now, after all of these years, I've approached thousands of women all around the world, been on hundreds and hundreds of dates, slept with many of them, and even had threesomes with a few of them. And I've helped guys from all over the world, USA, Canada, all over EU, UK, Australia, Hong Kong, Switzerland, etc. do the same. So join the free webinar where I will teach you how to overcome approach anxiety. You can find all the details and grab a spot by clicking the link in description. And now let's jump into the conversation with Mr. Black, which as usual when I have guests on is audio only to preserve the privacy of my guests. Okay, we're here with Mr. Black. Dude, tell us shortly, give us a broad information about yourself. Approximately how old are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Yep. All right, cool. Let's get into it. I am in my 40s, early 40s. I live in New York City. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm also an extreme athlete. Do lots of crazy shit. And I guess that's the main stuff. I'm really into creative things as well. And I guess that's the gist of it.
Yeah, so you're like a mix between a serious guy and a very creative guy. That's important, not because girls like that combination of things. Usually, guys like that actually usually do pretty okay in Daygame because having both of these sides is very appealing very often. And we hopped on a call with you a few months ago. Let me actually take a look when that was. We started in May, early to mid-May, we started working with you. We hopped in a call. And what were your obstacles when you decided, hey, I want to do something about my Daygame?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Going back even further, I would almost say that I've always been I'm actually a pretty social person, but this is something that I've had to build over my entire life. There's definitely a level of me being kind of socially awkward when I was a little kid. But this is also something that I've been working on for a long time as well. So I would kind of almost think about it like I built myself very gradually and very consciously to develop, right? And so that's part of becoming an entrepreneur, getting into all these interesting hobbies and whatnot. But I'm also Asian. Traditionally, Western society views Asian men as being emasculated, even though I'm definitely a very masculine guy. I'm also short. I'm not tall, I've always had those things in my head of I feel awkward sometimes. Oh, I'm too short, oh, I'm not good looking enough, and all of these kinds of things. And this is something I've struggled with my entire life. And this is something that I've been working on my entire life, trying to build out, I guess what we would call my SMV. So I would say that I've always viewed myself as having this weird dichotomy of being insecure, but also knowing because I put in all this work my entire life that I have actually relatively high SMV in spite of kind of, the insecurities that I have in my head. But the interesting thing about Daygame is that it really forces you to, confront those fears. And part of the reason why I know that my SMV is relatively high is just based on the girls that I've dated in the past. I've dated lots of pretty, I mean, maybe lots is not the right word. I've had a decent lay count before I started Daygame. And I've dated, pretty hot girls, so a lot of girls that have been taller than me. So I've always known that I have potential, and I've always known that my SMV is high, but I've always felt like there was this barrier, or there was this inefficiency in terms of, I guess, in day game terms, of how to deliver my SMV, right? Because I would get these girls and it would always be kind of like, it felt too random for me, like I used the apps and I would match with a bunch of hot girls. And every once in a while I would get lucky and I would go on a date, or I'd, make one of them my girlfriend, but it always felt very haphazard. And especially the way dating apps work now, it's just like total, it just sucks, And so I was just kind of getting frustrated with it. And I was like, I need to do something to fix it. So I've been married before, and then I just got out of a 1-year relationship, and I dabbled in day game before I got married. So this is probably, I don't know, 8 years ago or something like that. Probably, maybe actually more than that, maybe 10 years ago or something like that. And I remember trying it a little bit, and I did have some kind of crazy results. Like I remember meeting this French girl in the park, and then I opened her and then invited her to a party. And then she was a singer in a rock band, a French rock band. And then we ended up making out at the party, but then her friends like pulled her away because she was actually dating the lead singer in the rock band, So I was like, oh damn, there's something to this, right? I was like, oh shit, okay, there's something to this. But then it was kind of like super hard. I never really got over the AA, and then I think I ended up getting into a relationship, and then it kind of just went away. But in the back of my mind, I was like, day game does seem like the way to go to solve this problem. And then so fast forward,
got out of this relationship. I was feeling kind of, down. And then I got on the dating apps, and I was like, fuck, this sucks, I'm seeing all these hot girls and I'm just like not matching, or I would match and it wouldn't go anywhere. And then I actually really remember going on this, I finally matched with this one girl, and I go on the date with her. I'm like not attracted to her at all. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is what I'm going to be stuck doing, And I was just like, no, fuck that. I'm not going to resign myself to this. I know I have, the potential because of the girls I've dated in the past, but it just felt so, haphazard and random when I would actually match with a girl that I actually liked. And I was like, I'm gonna do something about this. I'm gonna take this into my own hands. And I've always been kind of like that in terms of like identifying the biggest bottleneck in terms of like what I need to do in the next stage of my life. And I realized that my dating was the area that I needed to focus on, right? I already have all my shit taken care of in terms of my, my business, my lifestyle, my hobbies, my friends, I have all of that. But I was just like, why haven't I been able to date the girls that I want to date on a consistent basis? Maybe I'm a little bit different from most day gamers, but I really do want to settle down. And having that drive and that intention actually helped me get over one of the things that I struggled with in day game as well, which was this concept that what I'm doing is a little weird, or socially not acceptable, or maybe even creepy. Some might say that, but I kind of came at it from the standpoint of, well, this is what I need to do to meet the woman that I want to eventually, the love of my life, and marry and settle down with and have kids. And I was like, if I'm not willing to like do the hard, dangerous, scary thing to do that, which is arguably the most important thing that you'll ever do in your life, because who your partner is shapes and is probably one of the most consequential decisions in your life. I was like, if I'm not willing to put in the work there, then, and I'm just going to resign to whether like some girl just like swipes, right on an app, then I'm being a fucking pussy. So I'm like, nah, fuck that. I'm going to go for it. Right. And like, I've done a lot of really dangerous things. Regularly I do things that, most people will be fucking terrified about. I'm also a public speaker, so like I've overcome so many things that, people would shit their pants doing. And I'm like, why don't I do it? Why don't I apply that same drive and discipline to this aspect of my life? And it's always been tough to do because this is actually in some ways the hardest thing that I've ever done. It's scarier than a lot of the things that I've done where literally if I made a mistake, I would die. You know what I'm saying? Because what you're confronting is your ego. That's really what it is. And this is also a pursuit that is, like being an entrepreneur, being an extreme athlete, they're socially accepted, like you're socially encouraged to do these things. But when it comes to doing something like Daygame, it's kind of like, you kind of can't really tell your friends about it because your friends might be like, what the heck? Or at least that's what I had in my head anyway. But I had to push. I mean, being an extreme athlete, you're also doing something that's kind of rebellious and unconventional. So I had that streak in me, and also being an artist and a creative. But this was like, I was like, but this is the most direct through line to achieve my objective. And so I was like,
yeah. So you started talking about the kind of the idea that, okay, this isn't socially acceptable. What were some of the beliefs that you had because of your approach anxiety? Because you didn't because you sound like this cool, confident guy, and you are. But when it came to Daygame, like we knew from the beginning that there was quite a bit of AA, and you had a lot of kind of beliefs that were kind of really holding you back. So what were the biggest beliefs that were holding you back?
Oh, there are so many. So it's like, number one, girls don't like Asian guys. Number two, girls don't like short guys. Number three, girls don't want to be approached. And though I think those were the big ones. And also there's a huge spotlight effect of like, I'm going to be judged by other people if I'm seen approaching other girls. I think that those were the big ones that come to mind right off the bat.
Yeah, because I remember your spotlight effect was really, really big for you. I remember you were going out and you had this really, for the first days, you kept telling me that like, listen, like I can't Daygame in my neighborhood because, I'm going to run into people I know. I'm going to run into my friends. I'm going to run into neighbors. And you had a lot of kind of beliefs like that. So while having these beliefs, how did you manage to do your first approaches?
I mean, it was fucking hard. I'll tell you that. It's just like, I guess it's very like, common, but you just walk around for hours just being like, do like one approach, two approach, three approach, and, I think obviously that's what got me and made me decide to do the coaching. Cause I was like, this is fucking so hard, and I was like, I need something that is gonna and that's what drew me to your content and your materials is cause you are just very systematic about it. And then also the structure, cause it's like, learning game on your own is kind of like, I'm just going to go and don't know, like, I'm just going to go start dancing with these girls, but I don't even know how to dance. That's basically kind of what it's like. And you're just like, cause like when you're talking to a girl, you immediately approaching a girl, you get this intense fight or flight response, right? And so much of that fight or flight response is just driven by the fact that you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do after I go talk to her, And so how you talked about there's a structure that you can follow, really made me be like, okay, this does make sense. And then the way you talked about volume and getting the reps in, that's something that I resonated with as well, and is doing the hard work. And so I was like, okay, there's something to this. And then I do remember listening to 2 of your podcasts of guys in similar situations. They were both short, they were entrepreneurs, but then they got results. There was like an Indian guy in London, I think. And I listened to that one. I was like, that's inspiring. And then it was another guy. I think he was white, but he was short and he was getting results. And I was like, well, that sounds like I should be able to do that. Right. And especially because I've dated girls that are taller than me, but it's like this belief system, so much of your thoughts are just echoes of your past conditioning, and so you have to change your value system and gradually like break down those limiting beliefs. And you can only do that through repetition. And I know that from doing, being an extreme athlete, doing dangerous things where I'm like, okay, I know I'm going to feel this fear, but I know that I have to push past this fear. And then once I push past it, it'll become much more normalized, and it's pure exposure therapy. That's the best way to get over fear. And then the way you talked about volume, I was like, okay, yeah, this is the way I got to do it. But even in spite of all that, in spite of all that, it was still really fucking hard. It's probably one of the hardest things I've ever done for sure.
Okay, so you started with, you were walking around quite a bit, and it was like really hard to do the approaches. And so in the beginning, did you go straight into? Did you start with doing sort of like one approach per session? You go out, you do one approach, or were you able to kind of fast forward a little bit and start with like 5 per session? How did you build up the volume you were doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I started off slow. So this is before we started the coaching. I started off slow, and I would just do like one approach. I go out for 3 hours or 2 hours, and I do like one approach, and then I'll be like, oh, fuck. But I think the important thing was like every time I even made a little bit of progress, I like was still proud of it. And I think that's so much of the key is to, focus not on the outputs, but instead to focus on the input. Like if you put the work in, you're going to get the results, but are you putting the work in? So even me going out and doing a session and and doing one approach, I kind of view that as a win, right? And then the next time I'll be like, I got to 2. Then I got to 3, and I was like, damn, I'm doing pretty good. Shit, I'm hot shit. And then I listened to your podcast and you're like, you got to do 20. I'm like, oh, damn, I'm dog shit. So that's why I was like, okay, all right, I need to change something up about my approach. And then and then we started doing the coaching. And I'm actually looking at this, like, I think, so I'm actually looking at my stats here. I think I did, after we formally started doing it, I did one session, one approach. I'm sure I was walking around for 2 hours. And then I did another session. I did one approach. And then
I'm looking at the stats as well.
And then the next one I did like, it looks like I did like nearly 10. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah, 9.
Yeah, I did 9.
Yes.
And I think that's when I jumped off the cliff. And I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to go. And I still remember that because this girl, the first girl I opened, she hooked really hard. And I was just like, I could relax because I had the structure, even though I didn't really have the structure that well at that point. And then we ended up going on a date, and then that ended up being my first lay. And I think
if your third approach since we started working games.
Yeah. So I think that gave me a lot of confidence, and that same session, I mean, I got 5 numbers. I got 5 numbers on that one session. And then that kind of like blew the doors open, because I was like, oh shit, there is something to this. Like I can make this happen. Like after that, I was like, okay, I know I can do this. Right. And so that was just this little jolt of inspiration. So then I think that gave me the fortitude and the self-belief. There's a difference. There's 2 things, right? You can have self-belief, but if you can't back it up, it's always going to feel like shallow and weak. But because I had a combination of the self-belief, but then I also was starting to get results, I was like, okay, if I can just like replicate this and keep on doing it, then I'm going to get the results that I want.
Yeah. Because the thing is, you're a cool guy who already is social, but then when you finally just, as you said, jump off the cliff and did 9 approaches, that's when kind of things really started to click. That's what sometimes happens when guys really gonna get into it, and then then the reality hits, and then you kind of start to
right.
That initial excitement goes away, and then the results kind of aren't like that afterwards usually. But and then you actually have to learn shit.
That's exactly what happened. Because I got that. I did that first session. I got a bunch of approaches, and I was like a bunch of numbers, and then I actually still really remember this. So then the next session I did, I approached she was like literally a model. like fucking super hot model getting flown around the world and shit. And I had a date set up with her. And then I approached another model, like tall, super hot model that are in ads. Like if you're walking around the streets, you'll like see them and shit. I was like, oh damn, okay, I got something. I can do this, right? Now after that though, that's what gave me the self-belief. Oh, and then damn, I guess the next week I met the second girl that I got my second lay with.
Yeah.
But then after that, I remember hitting a really long stretch where I was going on, you know, I got a date here or there. But I wasn't, and I still haven't gotten my third lay yet. But I was like, I don't know. I knew that there was potential, and I knew if I kept on putting in the work, I had a couple more dates that didn't go anywhere, you know, but I knew that I was like super close. You know, I think that they got too much of like a player vibe for me, and I think that's the reason why they bailed off, or they just weren't like that interesting or cool. But yeah, I don't know. But I did hit a long stretch, and only now am I coming back like 3 months later where I'm like, now I'm at a place where I'm like super stoked and happy about.
Yeah, because this sometimes happens with guys who have that personality of a guy who can't talk to chicks, who can't talk to people, and they start day gaming. They sometimes have this really good, like for example, during infield coaching, sometimes guys have like a really good first day, and then like a shitty second day.
Yeah.
And then we build back up on like day 3, day 4. They learn game, and then things start working.
Yeah.
And it sort of happened like that with you, but remotely, where you had that really crazy beginning, but then, okay, now you actually have to learn the game.
Right.
And then the better it becomes, like, you know, the more kind of results you started getting. But I think one important point to mention is, do you mind telling shortly about, do you remember what happened with the model? Like that you were so excited about the model, do you remember the behaviors you saw from her? Because I think that was like a big eye opener from her that, hey, I got to learn to deal with shit like this. Do you remember all of that?
Yeah. I mean, she was, very princessy, you know, like she just has guys like flying her around, or, you know, so she, first date, well, first she wanted to go to dinner, and I was like, no, let's do drinks, you know, and I think then they got postponed, and then she actually wanted me to get her an Uber to pick her up, meet me at the place, because she had a shoot in the city. And then I was like, and then I remember talking to you about this, and you're like, nah, well, you're just like, she sounds like a princess. And I tried to playfully, you know, be like, you know, I don't remember exactly what I said, but like, be like, oh, you can get yourself here, and I'll take care of the fun, or something like that. And then she didn't come out. Yeah. So, you know.
Yeah, this is important to understand, that sometimes you get these chicks who, just as you have your things you do in game to filter for the right types of girls, there are girls who are using their techniques to filter for guys who will pay for stuff. And as excited you got about that model, it was very quickly clear that she's that type of a girl. I think you had one more similar case, right? After that?
Maybe.
Or was it the only one?
Maybe. No, I don't think I had another princess. I mean, I did get the number of this one, you know, catwalk model, but, yeah, I don't think she was like that. No.
Yeah. So what other obstacles did you have to deal with to start? Because right now you're getting dates, you know, you're getting dates almost, we could start almost saying consistently, right?
Yeah, I think really my biggest obstacles, you know, this is why I really, I think my biggest regret is I didn't do this sooner and earlier in my life, you know, because, well, it's a double-edged sword. I don't know. Maybe I wouldn't be getting these results if I hadn't built my life to the point where it was, you know, because like if I had devoted the earlier part of my life to game, maybe I wouldn't have all my interesting hobbies. But it's like, yeah, it's like whether you pursue it directly or indirect. I feel like, okay, to be successful, you need to both build your SMV over the long term, and then you also want to get good at game. right? Because obviously that's the way you deliver the value. But I feel like, yeah, I just wish I had done this sooner, honestly, because now I'm at the point in my life where I do actually want to meet somebody and settle down. And I'm almost like, damn, but this is just getting fun. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm in a situation right now where I'm like, dang, there's so much out there. And like, I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to cross that bridge and see what I do. But I think the biggest thing is just, getting over at the core of it all is like, do you accept yourself? Do you love yourself? Do you believe in yourself? And that inability to do that is what prevents you from going and approaching the girl that you're actually, you're interested in, because you're just scared of rejection and you're scared of what that means for yourself. So this is like one of the best things I've done just in terms of like developing like true self-confidence and self-love, where you go and approach and you might get blown out. Like I think we were talking about like this past week I was hot and I was getting like 40%, number closes for like 2 weeks or so. And then I went out, and this past week I got like only one number for going out for a week and a ton of blowouts. But in spite of that, I didn't give a shit. I was like, well, I'm putting in the work. This doesn't mean that I'm any less of a man. This doesn't mean I'm any less of a person, any lower value or anything like that. It's just like the way chance works out sometimes, because I know my vibe was good. I know my delivery was good. So it's about developing that self-belief. And I think game is kind of like this fire that forges, your strength. Iron sharpens iron. So like Daygame is hard as fuck. So it is iron. And if you're not strong enough, you're not tough enough, and you're not willing to put the work in, it's just going to cut you up and spit you out for sure. But if you look at it from the standpoint of, this is exactly what I need. Like, I feel this pain. I feel this rejection, and it hurts me and it stings me. Like, that's good, because that's what's going to make you strong,? And so ultimately it comes down to like getting to, I am going to do this anyway in spite of this rejection.
So where are you now in your day game? So you're getting some dates, but because we were recording this right after finishing a coaching call, and you were basically telling me like, hey, this is everything that's happening. How the fuck do I deal with this? So maybe tell the guys, where are you right now with your day game?
Yeah. So it's almost like I got too much going on, we were talking about like, do I keep up the volume with this much stuff going on? So I have a regular who is super sexually adventurous. She's talking about having threesomes. She wants to have threesomes and do all this stuff. And then I just went on my second dates with 2 girls. So one is a super hot girl, and it turns out she's also polyamorous, and she's been in threesomes. So maybe I'll be having a threesome between the 2 of them. We'll see. I'm also seeing this other girl that's really cute, really sweet, really hot. I mean, she has long-term potential. And then I literally yesterday, I went out, and then I saw this one girl, super smoking hot. Oh my God. Like, basically porn star. And it turns out she has OnlyFans. So I have a date with her tomorrow. And then I have another date with this super hot girl on later this week. So literally I have like 4 dates this week and a regular that I have to see. So I have like 5 dates that I have to like basically deal with this week. And I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to do this with everything else I got going on. Right. But like, this is what I dreamed of, when I was like, this is what I always dreamed like I could experience potentially in New York City. And now it's happening. Like they haven't converted to lays, but I'm pretty certain I'll get at least 2 lays out of this.
Don't say it.
Yeah, I know.
Don't say it.
I know. I don't want to jinx myself, but I'm like, but this is like exactly where I want to be. Like, I'm in the mix. And it's like, this is the thing that, I think this is the most empowering thing. Because I think before, if this was online dating, I would be like, you just be so precious about everything. You'd be like, fuck, another one like this. And it, I would match with chicks that are super hot, but it would just like take a really long time. It'd be like once in a blue moon, I would have a match with the girl I'm actually interested in. But now I'm just like, okay, if this doesn't work out, I'm just going to go out and I'm going to meet somebody else, you know? So it gives me this this freedom and this optionality that has completely shifted my approach and my understanding. And I think that's going to rub off in terms of my confidence when I'm actually on these dates with these girls as well.
Amazing. This is an amazing story. This is why I wanted to do a short podcast episode with you, because I think your journey is. I love working with interesting, cool dudes who do interesting shit in their lives, because even though you started with a lot of approach anxiety and these big beliefs about this and that and short and Asian and spotlight effect and what people are going to think, you can have a very quick transformation to where you are right now. So thank you, Mr. Black, a lot for doing this podcast episode. And I really hope to see you in person. Thanks for listening. And if you want me to teach you to overcome approach anxiety, just I did with Mr. Black for free, then grab a spot in the free webinar. Link is in description. That's it for this time. See you in the next podcast episode. Ciao, guys.